Once upon a time in the heart of the city lived a poor beggar named Daniel. Every morning, he sat at the corner of the busy market road, his clothes torn, his slippers worn out, his hands stretched toward passers-by. Some threw him coins, others ignored him, and a few insulted him. Yet, Daniel never fought back. He would only bow his head and whisper, "God bless you." Despite his condition, Daniel carried something most men had lost, kindness. He was poor in pocket, but rich in heart. One day, as he sat in the scorching sun, a young girl passed by. Her name was Clara. She was beautiful, with bright eyes and a gentle smile, but her family was poor too. Her parents struggled to feed her, yet they dreamed she would go to school and live a better life. Clara looked at Daniel as she passed. Unlike others, she did not see a dirty beggar. She saw a man with tired eyes that held pain and stories untold. On that day, she greeted him kindly. "Good afternoon," she said softly. Daniel lifted his head in surprise. No one had spoken to him with such warmth in a long time. "Good afternoon, my dear," he replied with a smile. From that day forward, Clara often stopped to greet him whenever she went to the market. Sometimes she brought him leftover food, sometimes just a smile. In return, Daniel shared with her words of encouragement. Slowly, what began as greetings grew into friendship. They started talking about life. Clara would sit beside him, her school books in her lap, while Daniel listened to her dreams of becoming a nurse. He admired her determination, though he knew her parents could not afford it. One evening, as they talked, Clara's eyes filled with tears. "My father said I may not continue with school," she whispered. "We don't have the money. He wants me to learn tailoring instead. But my heart burns to wear a nurse's uniform one day." Daniel sat in silence, his heart heavy. He had nothing, yet he could not bear to see her dreams die. That night, while he lay on the cold floor of the abandoned shop where he slept, he prayed deeply. "God, bless my hands, that I may bless this girl. She has a good heart. Help me to help her." The next morning, Daniel went around the city, not just to beg, but to gather every coin he could. He saved. He denied himself food just to keep a little aside. Weeks turned into months. His hands were blistered, his stomach often empty, but his small bag of savings grew heavier each day. When Clara's father finally announced she must drop out of school, Daniel walked to their little house. He knocked timidly, clutching the dirty bag in his hand. Clara's father opened the door, frowning at him. "What do you want here?" "Beggar," the man barked. Daniel bowed his head respectfully. "Sir, I am sorry to disturb you, but I brought something. Please take it." Let Clara continue with her schooling. Clara, standing behind her father, gasped. Daniel opened the bag and poured out the coins he had painfully saved. The little table trembled under the weight of sacrifice. The man was stunned. He looked at Daniel as if he were mad. "Where did you get this from?" he demanded. "From begging, from sleeping hungry, from saving," Daniel said simply. "Clara deserves a chance." Clara's eyes filled with tears as she clasped her mouth with both hands. She had never imagined a man the world called useless would give up everything for her dream. Her father was quiet for a long time. At last, he pushed the money toward her and muttered, "Take it. Go and pay your fees." From that day, Clara's life took a new turn. And though she didn't know it yet, Daniel's sacrifice would bind their lives together in ways neither of them could imagine. Clara's dream began to come alive. With the money Daniel gave, she returned to school and wore her white nursing uniform with pride. Whenever she walked through the compound of the nursing college, she looked bright, determined, and hopeful. At night, when she lay on her bed in the hostel, she often thought about Daniel. His tired face, his weak smile, his blistered hands, all because of her. She told herself she owed him everything. "I must never forget what he did for me," she whispered. But in her heart, another voice was speaking. In the college, Clara met another young man named Kelvin. He was not rich, but he was neat, educated, and charming. He spoke with confidence and carried himself like someone who had a future. Kelvin noticed Clara too. Slowly, they grew close. He walked her to class, helped her carry her books, and made her laugh in ways Daniel never could. Clara began to feel something she tried to deny. She found herself looking for Kelvin's smile in the crowd. At night, she dreamt of him. But every time her heart tried to rest in Kelvin's arms, the image of Daniel waiting for her at the market corner returned like a shadow. Her friends in school did not make things easier. They often mocked her. "Clara, why do you waste your beauty with that dirty beggar?" one girl sneered. Another laughed. "Do you want to smell like him? Look at Kelvin, look at other young men. They are your class. Leave that man. Use him for money if you must, but don't tie your life to him." At first, Clara defended Daniel. "He is kind. He is the reason I am here today," she told them. But her friends only laughed louder. "Kindness cannot build a house. Kindness cannot buy you a car. One day you will thank us for this advice." Those words began to poison her mind. She told herself she was only being wise. Slowly, she began to change. Whenever Daniel came to visit her at the hostel gate, Clara would smile faintly, but her heart was no longer with him. She would hide her feelings, pretending to be in love, because she still needed his support. Daniel, blinded by his pure heart, never saw the cracks. "Clara," he would say, holding out a small bag of provisions he bought with his last coins, "I hope this helps you in school." She would collect it with a forced smile. "Thank you, Daniel. You are the best thing that ever happened to me." Her lips said the words, but her heart whispered, "Kelvin is the man I truly want." Her parents, too, played their part. One evening, her father called her aside. His voice was harsh but clear. "Clara, listen to me. That beggar can never marry you. Don't be foolish. The reason I allow him to come here is because of what he brings. We need his money. Pretend if you must, but do not tie yourself to him. Do you hear me?" Clara lowered her head. "Yes, Papa." That night, she cried quietly on her bed. She knew she was deceiving Daniel, but she could not stop herself. She wanted a better life. She wanted a man who could stand tall before the world. And so, between gratitude and desire, between truth and pretense, Clara's heart became a battlefield. Daniel, on the other hand, still knelt in prayer every night. "Lord, thank you for Clara," he whispered. "She is my joy. She is my tomorrow. Help me to give her more than this world can imagine." He never knew that the very love he was fighting for was slowly slipping away from his hands. Clara's life in the nursing school grew brighter each day, but her heart grew darker. Kelvin had now become her hidden joy. They sat together in class. They shared lunch under the shade of the big mango tree. And sometimes he walked her back to her hostel in the evenings. One evening, Kelvin held her hand softly. "Clara, I like you. You are different from the others." Her heart fluttered. She lowered her eyes, pretending to be shy. "Kelvin, I don't know what to say." "Say yes," he whispered. "Let's be more than friends." And Clara nodded. From that moment, she belonged to Kelvin in secret. She laughed with him, shared dreams with him, and built castles in the air with him. But when Daniel came to the hostel gate, tired, weak, and dusty from begging, Clara would quickly wash her face, force a smile, and run to him. "Daniel," she would call sweetly. "You came? Oh, you brought something for me again." She would hug him lightly, pretending for the world to see, while her friends hid behind the walls, laughing and mocking. "Look at her," they whispered. "The beggar's wife-to-be." Another giggled. "Let her enjoy the coins while she can. Soon she will fly away with Kelvin." The poison sank deeper. Daniel, however, was blind with love. He saw nothing, heard nothing, believed everything. Whenever Clara stretched her hand, he placed his last coin in it. Whenever she said, "I love you," his heart leapt, not knowing her lips were lying. But fate had a cruel way of testing love. One Saturday, Clara and her friends were at a small party in the school compound. Kelvin was there too, sitting close to her, whispering things that made her blush. The music was loud, laughter filled the air. Suddenly, Daniel appeared at the gate. He had walked all the way from the city, carrying a small nylon bag of fruits and biscuits he bought for Clara. When he entered, his presence drew eyes immediately. His torn clothes, his tired sandals, his dusty face, all looked out of place in the bright, colorful gathering. Clara's friends noticed him first. They burst into laughter. "Look, Clara's beggar is here," one shouted. Another clapped her hands mockingly. See how he carries food like he is her father." Daniel, innocent as always, ignored them and walked straight to Clara, his eyes glowing with love. "Clara," he called softly, "I brought something for you. I know you like biscuits." Clara's face froze. Kelvin was watching. Her friends were watching. She felt shame like a heavy cloth on her shoulders. Instead of smiling, she frowned. "Daniel," she shouted suddenly, "why are you here? Who told you to come to my school party? Can't you see this is not your place?" The laughter from her friends grew louder. Some clapped, some whistled, others shook their heads in mock pity. Daniel stood there, shocked. His heart felt like it had been stabbed. He held out the nylon bag with trembling hands. I only came to see you. I thought you would be happy." Clara snatched the bag from him and dropped it on the floor. "Please leave. You are embarrassing me in front of my friends. Go back to your street." From the corner, her friends laughed harder, covering their mouths but loud enough for Daniel to hear. They mocked him, calling him names, pointing at his clothes. Daniel's eyes filled with tears, but he forced a smile. He bent slowly, picked up the nylon bag, and placed it gently on the bench beside Clara. "Forgive me," he whispered. "I didn't mean to embarrass you. I just wanted to see you smile." Clara turned her face away, pretending not to care, though inside her heart pounded with guilt. Kelvin sat still, his lips curved in a slight smirk, saying nothing. Daniel walked out quietly, his legs weak, his spirit trembling. He could still hear the laughter behind him. Every step he took felt heavier than the last. Yet in his foolish love, he told himself, maybe she didn't mean it. Maybe she was only angry. Clara loves me, she must love me. The world mocked him, Clara humiliated him, but Daniel's heart refused to stop believing. After the humiliation at the party, Daniel went home broken. He stayed awake all night, thinking of Clara's words. The laughter of her friends echoed in his ears like drums, yet his heart still refused to hate her. 2 days later, Clara came to him. She had worn a simple dress, her eyes red from crying. She knelt in front of him, her hands trembling. "Daniel," she whispered, "please forgive me. I don't know what came over me. I love you so much. I cannot do without you. It was the devil. Please don't leave me." Daniel's eyes softened. He reached out and lifted her from the ground. "Clara, don't cry," he said quietly. "I forgive you. Maybe I embarrassed you. I should have asked before coming. Please don't cry again." Clara wiped her tears and forced a smile. Deep inside, her heart was still with Kelvin. But she knew Daniel's forgiveness meant the flow of money and care would continue. 3 months passed. Clara continued her studies. She would smile at Daniel whenever he came, but inside she had already built a wall between them. Daniel, blind with love, gave her everything he had, his time, his strength, his prayers. Then one morning, disaster struck. Clara collapsed during a practical session at the hospital. She was rushed to the emergency ward. Tests were run. The doctors came out, their faces serious. "She has a damaged kidney," one doctor said to Daniel. "She needs a transplant urgently. Without it, she may not survive." Daniel's heart stopped. He looked at Clara lying pale and weak on the bed. He remembered how she had once said she wanted to wear a nurse's uniform and help the sick. Now she was the one lying helpless. "I will do it," Daniel said suddenly. "Take mine. Test me. If I am a match, take my kidney." The doctors stared at him. Are you her husband?" "I am everything she has," Daniel said simply. Tests were done. By fate, Daniel's kidney matched Clara's. Without telling her, he signed the consent papers. He also paid for the entire surgery, the operation fees, the drugs, even the private room Clara would recover in. The doctors were surprised. They whispered among themselves, wondering how a poor beggar could pay such heavy bills without delay. But Daniel gave no explanations. He only nodded, his face calm, hiding the truth. For unknown to them, he was the owner of the biggest company in the city, with estates and businesses scattered across the state. Yet he kept that secret locked in his heart. The surgery was successful. Clara survived. Daniel lay in his own hospital bed weak and pale, his side stitched. But he refused to complain. All he asked was, "Is Clara all right?" 2 weeks later, Clara was discharged. Daniel paid the last hospital bill quietly and walked her out of the ward. His steps slow, but his heart grateful. "Thank you, God," he whispered, "for saving her." One cool evening, Clara sat alone in her room, staring at the ceiling. The fan hummed softly. She pressed her hand to her side where the operation scar was. Her mind drifted to Daniel. Where did he get all that money? She wondered. Is it from begging? No, it cannot be. There must be something he is hiding. But what? She shook her head and scoffed. Anyway, Shah, it is not my business. She leaned back on the bed. I don't even love him again. All I want from him is his money. The reason I'm still with him is because he is taking care of all my bills. If not, I would have left him since. Because he is useless to me. Ordinary beggar that did not have future. She gave a long sigh and hissed softly. Nonsense. How did he expect Mimi Clara to love him? Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Kelvin. She smiled, her heart warming at the sight of his name. In that moment, Daniel's face faded from her thoughts like a shadow disappearing at sunset. Meanwhile, Daniel sat outside under the moonlight, holding his side in pain. He thought of Clara, praying for her health, dreaming of their wedding, never knowing that in her heart he was already nothing more than a wallet. When his thoughts grew heavy, he slowly stood up from the wooden chair. He slipped his hand into his pocket and brought out his phone. With weak fingers, he dialed his private driver. Come pick me, Daniel said quietly. Within 30 minutes, a black SUV pulled up quietly at the dark corner where Daniel had been pretending to live. The driver stepped out and opened the door with respect. Daniel entered, his face still calm, and they drove off into the night. The car soon turned into a long, beautiful driveway lit with golden lights. At the end of it stood Daniel's private mansion, a place that looked like paradise. Tall palm trees lined the path. The fountain in front sparkled under the moon, and the mansion itself glowed white against the night sky. Daniel entered his home, silent and thoughtful. The guards bowed as he passed, but he barely noticed them. He climbed the staircase slowly, his body weak from the surgery. The next morning, Daniel made a call. His closest friend, Dr. Matthew, a renowned doctor in the city, arrived at the mansion. He treated Daniel carefully, checking his wound and giving him medication. When he was done, he sighed deeply. Daniel, why? Why did you give your kidney to that girl? Haven't you done enough for her already? Daniel smiled faintly. I love her, Matthew. That is why. Love is sacrifice. Dr. Matthew looked at him for a long while, then shook his head. Daniel, be careful. Are you sure this girl loves you? Are you sure she is worthy of all this effort? Daniel's eyes softened. He leaned back on his pillows. Yes, she loves me. We love each other. I believe it. Dr. Matthew placed a hand on his shoulder and sighed. Okay then. I wish you luck, my friend. With that, he left. Later that evening, Daniel lay on his king-size bed, his laptop on his lap, typing away. He sipped red wine slowly, his eyes focused on the work of his company. Beyond Clara's knowledge, Daniel was still running the highest and largest business empire in the city. His company stretched across states, his estates filled with tenants, his businesses alive day and night. Yet he lived two lives, a billionaire in truth, a beggar in disguise. Meanwhile, Clara did not care about Daniel. She never asked about his health or his recovery. Instead, she was busy living her life with Kelvin. They went out secretly, laughing, enjoying themselves, all sponsored by the same money Daniel worked hard to give her. Clara had mastered the art of pretending, playing the sweet lover when Daniel was around. But in reality, she was only spending his money with another man. 2 weeks later, Daniel returned to his old disguise. He wore his dirty clothes again, sat at the corner of the road, and acted as the beggar everyone thought he was. When Clara came by, she smiled at him sweetly, hiding her true heart. One evening, Daniel looked into Clara's eyes and spoke gently. Clara, I have something to ask you. Will you marry me? Clara's heart jumped, not from love, but from calculation. She thought of the steady flow of money. She thought of the life of comfort she enjoyed because of him. Though she had no true feelings for him, she forced a smile, held his hand, and whispered, Yes, Daniel. I will marry you. Tears of joy filled Daniel's eyes. He hugged her tightly, his heart beating fast. "Thank you, Lord," he prayed silently. "She is mine forever." But what Daniel did not know was that Clara's yes came with an evil mindset. Her lips said "I do," but her heart whispered betrayal. And soon, the very love he treasured most would break him in ways he never imagined. The wedding day arrived. It was a bright Saturday morning. The little local church was decorated with flowers and ribbons, the benches filled with villagers curious to see the ceremony. A few whispered to each other, pointing at the groom. Daniel stood at the altar wearing an old brown suit. His shoes were clean but worn from years of use. Yet his face glowed with joy. In his heart, he was full of love and gratitude. "Today I will finally marry her," he thought. "All my pain, all my sacrifices, everything will be worth it." The pastor cleared his throat and looked at the door again. The church was silent except for the sound of a ceiling fan above. Everyone was waiting for the bride. Minutes passed. No sign of Clara. The whispers grew louder. Daniel's smile trembled, but he kept looking at the door, his eyes hopeful. "She will come," he whispered to himself. "Maybe she is delayed." Another 10 minutes passed. Still no Clara. Suddenly, the door of the church opened. Everyone turned. Clara's closest friend walked in, her heels clicking on the tiled floor. She was not dressed like a bridesmaid. Instead, she wore a tight dress and carried a white envelope in her hand. She was covering her nose and laughing softly, trying not to burst out loud. All eyes were on her as she walked to the altar. She stopped in front of Daniel, looked him up and down with mockery in her eyes, and said loudly, "This is from Clara." She pushed the envelope into his hands. Daniel's fingers shook as he took it. "Where is she? Is she all right?" he asked, his voice trembling. The friend smirked and shrugged. "Read it," she said, and walked back slowly, still laughing. The church grew dead silent. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. His eyes blurred with tears as he tore open the letter and began to read aloud, his voice breaking. "Dear Daniel, I never loved you from the beginning. Thanks for everything you have done for me. May God bless you and repay you, but my heart never beat for you. It beats for someone else. Think of it, we are not on the same level. You are just a beggar begging people to survive, while I am a nurse, a graduate. Do you have anyone in your family? Please go and find your space, a beggar like you, and marry, not me. Daniel, I never loved you before. All the things I did were just pretenses. When you started giving me money and taking care of me, I pretended more." Daniel's hands trembled as the paper slipped from his fingers. It fluttered to the ground like a dead leaf. The church gasped. Some people whispered. Others shook their heads. For a long moment, Daniel stood frozen at the altar. The decorations blurred before his eyes. The ring he had bought for Clara felt heavy in his pocket. His heart felt like it had been torn open. He swallowed hard and tried to breathe, but the pain in his chest rose like a wave. In his ears, he could still hear Clara's laughter, Clara's sweet voice saying, "I love you." All eyes. Around him, some of the villagers chuckled quietly, thinking of how foolish he had been. Clara's friend covered her mouth and laughed louder. "You see," she whispered to someone at the back. "This is what happens when a beggar wants to marry above his level." Daniel bent slowly and picked up the letter again. He folded it carefully, wiped his eyes with his sleeve, and forced a faint smile. "Thank you, Lord," he whispered. "At least I now know the truth." He stood there at the altar, the crowd murmuring around him. But inside he made a quiet decision, a decision that would shake Clara's world when the truth of who he really was finally came out. While the church grew silent after Daniel read the painful letter, Clara was not there to see the damage she had caused. She was in Kelvin's small apartment, sitting comfortably on his couch with her makeup still fresh. Music played softly in the background. Her friend walked in, smiling like someone who carried sweet gossip. Clara jumped up quickly. "How did it go?" she asked eagerly. The friend burst into loud laughter, dropping her bag on the chair. "Clara, you should have seen his face. You should have seen his clothes. He looked like a goat drained in the rain." Clara held her stomach and laughed until tears came out. She clapped her hands together, shaking her head. "Serves him right. Imagine a beggar thinking he can marry me. Foolish man." Her friend wiped her eyes. "The whole church was silent, Clara. When he read your letter, he almost collapsed. I swear, I have never seen such shame in my life. Just then Kelvin came out from the bedroom, adjusting his shirt. He smiled at both women and asked, "What is going on here? What are you laughing about?" Clara ran to him and hugged him. "It is done, Kelvin. I ended everything with Daniel." Kelvin smirked proudly. "Good. Then let us celebrate." He turned up the music louder, and soon they were dancing in the room, laughing, drinking, and rejoicing. To them, Daniel was finished. To them, Clara had won. But while they danced, Daniel was walking through the hot sun, heading to Clara's parents' house. His steps were heavy, his eyes red from tears. He wanted answers. He wanted to know why Clara had betrayed him so deeply. When he arrived, Clara's father was sitting outside, drinking palm wine. He stood up angrily when he saw Daniel. "What are you doing here again, Beggar?" he barked. Daniel's voice shook. "Sir, I only came to ask, why did Clara do this to me? After everything, why?" The man's face hardened. "Listen to me very well. There's no way I will allow my daughter to marry a beggar like you. Look at yourself. What do you have? Go and be useful to yourself instead of disturbing us." Daniel's lips trembled. "But I love her. I trained her in school. I gave her everything I had, even my—" "Shut up," Clara's father shouted, pointing his finger at him. "Yes, you trained her, and we thank you for that. When she has enough money, she will repay you. As for the kidney, did she beg you to give it to her? No, you did it because you loved her. She never forced you. So do not disturb her life. She has moved on. Leave my compound now and never come back again." The words cut through Daniel's heart like a sharp blade. He stood frozen for a moment, tears welling in his eyes. Then, without another word, he turned slowly and began to walk away. Each step felt heavier than the last. By the time he reached the broken fence near the old house where he used to hide his true life, his legs gave way. He fell to his knees, covering his face with his hands. Hot tears ran down his cheeks, his chest heaving with pain. That night, he could not bear it any longer. He pulled out his phone with shaky hands and called his private driver. "Come for me," he whispered. Within minutes, a sleek black car arrived silently. Daniel wiped his face, stood up slowly, and entered the car. The driver glanced at him in the mirror, but said nothing. With a gentle hum, the engine started, and they drove away into the night, away from shame, away from betrayal, into a future Clara had never imagined. 1 year passed after the painful betrayal. During those months, Daniel hid himself from the public eye. The man people once mocked as a useless beggar was gone from the streets. No one knew where he went. Clara and Kelvin, thinking they had won, lived their lives shamelessly. Clara worked at the hospital as a nurse. Kelvin stayed close to her, and together they mocked the memory of Daniel whenever his name was mentioned. But what they did not know was that Daniel had returned to his true life. He was no longer in torn clothes. He was in boardrooms, signing deals that shook the nation. He was no longer sleeping in old houses. He slept in mansions with golden gates and marble floors. Daniel was the silent hand behind the largest companies in the city. He controlled estates, banks, oil firms, hotels, transport lines, and industries that stretched across states. His face had been hidden, but his power had always spoken. And now he decided it was time to reveal himself. One bright morning, the city woke up to shock. On every billboard, on every television screen, on every newspaper headline was a name. Daniel Lawson, the billionaire behind it all. Cameras showed him stepping out of a convoy of black jeeps, dressed in a designer suit, bodyguards surrounding him. His steps were calm, his face confident, his presence commanding. Reporters rushed forward, shouting questions. "Sir, are you truly the same Daniel that was seen begging on the streets? Why did you hide your identity all these years?" Daniel only smiled faintly and said, "I wanted to know the truth about people. Now I know." The whole city was in confusion. Those who once mocked him covered their faces in shame. Those who once insulted him could not believe their eyes. Meanwhile, Clara and Kelvin sat together in a small restaurant. Clara was scrolling through her phone when the news broke. Her hand froze, her mouth fell open. "Kelvin, look," she stammered, showing him the screen. Kelvin leaned forward. His face darkened, as he saw the headline, "The beggar who was never a beggar, Daniel, the hidden billionaire." Clara's hand shook. This cannot be real. Daniel? A billionaire? But he was wearing torn clothes. He gave me coins. Kelvin pushed back his chair angrily. And you rejected him publicly. Clara, you mocked him. You wrote him that letter. Her heart sank like a stone. Her mind replayed every word she had written. I never loved you. You are just a beggar. Marry your fellow beggar. Shame burned her skin like fire. The door of the restaurant opened just then. People rushed outside, shouting and clapping. Daniel's convoy of cars was passing through the city center. Clara ran to the window. She saw him inside one of the jeeps, seated in comfort, a bodyguard opening the door for him. He stepped out in front of a massive crowd and the city cheered. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "Daniel." But Daniel never looked her way. He stood tall, shaking hands with leaders, giving a speech about his companies and his plans to build schools and hospitals for the poor. In that moment, Clara realized she had lost more than a man. She had lost destiny. She had mocked the very person who had carried her through life. And now, the beggar she despised had returned as the king she could never touch again. The city bowed to him. Clara hid her face in shame. Kelvin turned his back on her. And Daniel? He simply smiled, knowing that love cannot be bought and betrayal cannot be hidden forever. The city could not stop talking about Daniel Lawson, the billionaire who once walked the streets in rags. Some called him the wisest man alive. Others said he was heartless for hiding his identity. But one truth no one could deny. He was now untouchable. Clara, however, was not at peace. From the moment she saw the news, her days became restless. At work in the hospital, her colleagues whispered behind her back, "Isn't she the one who rejected him at the altar?" At home, Kelvin's love turned cold. He stopped calling her sweet names. He grew distant, ashamed of being known as the man she chose over a billionaire. One rainy evening, Clara made a decision. She dressed in a simple gown, her heart trembling. With tears in her eyes, she went to Daniel's mansion. The gate was tall, guarded by men in black suits. She begged them, crying, until one of them agreed to let her in. Inside the compound, Clara froze. The house was like a palace. The fountain glowed under. Golden lights, cars lined the driveway, and the air smelled of wealth. She walked slowly to the veranda where Daniel sat, dressed in a sharp suit, a glass of wine in his hand. When Daniel saw her, he did not look surprised. He simply leaned back in his chair, calm and unreadable. "Daniel," Clara whispered, falling on her knees. Tears streamed down her face. "Please forgive me. I didn't know. I was blind. I thought you were nothing, but now I see I was wrong. Daniel, I love you. Please, give me another chance. Don't throw me away." Daniel looked at her for a long time, his eyes soft but distant. Then he spoke quietly. "Clara, when I had nothing, or when I appeared to have nothing, you mocked me. You wrote me a letter that broke my soul. You called me a beggar, useless, unworthy of you. You laughed with your friends while I cried alone. You betrayed me when I gave you everything, even my own blood, my kidney. Tell me what love is in you." Clara sobbed harder, crawling closer. "Daniel, please. People make mistakes. I didn't know your worth. I was foolish. Forgive me. I will do anything. Please take me back." Daniel stood up slowly. His presence was commanding, his face calm. He walked down the steps and stood over her. "I once begged you for love," he said softly. "I once prayed for your smile. But now I owe myself peace. And peace is not with you." He turned to his guards. "Show her out." Clara's hands trembled as the guards gently lifted her up. "Daniel, please, don't do this. I love you. I need you," she screamed. But her cries echoed against the mansion walls, empty and powerless. Daniel turned his back and walked inside, his steps steady. For the first time, his heart was free. He had let go of the woman who never truly loved him. Outside, Clara collapsed on the ground as the gates closed before her. Kelvin's car was parked across the street. But when she ran to him for comfort, he shook his head and drove away, leaving her standing in the rain, abandoned, humiliated, and broken. That night, Daniel sat in his study, looking out at the city lights. He smiled faintly and whispered, "Thank you, Lord. Now I know the difference between true love and lies. And now, I am free." The chapter of Clara was closed forever.